Hello. Good morning, guys. Good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Hi. How y'all doing? I hope that you are starting your day out great. This is a requested video. Let me make sure y'all can hear me. This is a requested video. Yeah, y'all can't hear me. Okay. So this is a requested video. One of the questions that I received was how to vet men, how to pick better men, how to pick high quality men, those men that are pursuing you, that are trying to date you, how to go about selecting a man that's going to be a good husband. Now, I feel like I'm so glad you asked me this question, because when I was young and dumb, I feel like I wasn't too dumb, because I selected well. I selected a pretty darn good husband. But when I was younger, I selected in a way that I don't think I was reflective about until I got older. And these are some things that I've realized along the way from coming from a family where we have pretty successful marriages. No marriage is perfect. Every marriage is going to have their quirks and their ups and their downs. I mean, that's just a part of being human and living. But my parents married over 30 years. My sister married over 20 years. My grandparents, pretty sure they were married over 20 years too. My grandmother is deceased now. So I come from a long line of women who were happily married. Not like, oh, we got to stay married for the kids, or, oh, no, that's not the experience that I had. Doesn't mean that the women in my family haven't had struggles or they didn't go through marital issues. I'm sure everybody at some point in your marriage, you will go through some sort of marital issue. I mean, because we're human. But I'm not talking about just the little marital things that you go through. I'm talking about marrying the wrong person. I'm talking about giving your womb to a man who is not committed to you. I'm talking about a man who doesn't know how to communicate with you, who verbally abuses you, who uses communication as a weapon, who doesn't provide, women find themselves in a whole lot of situations. And what I hear from that, in particular, even though this channel is not about black marriage in particular, it's about marriage in general, but I'm a black woman, so I will always come from that perspective, so to speak. I think one of the issues is a lot of women like to say men are not any good, but the reality is you chose the wrong man. And that hurts to say, because then we have to be accountable for our actions and our behaviors and what we did to contribute in our own downfalls. And I know this has been hard for me over the years. It was very hard for me to be accountable for my own downfalls. And while I've been very successful in marriage, it did not come without learning my fair share of hard lessons and hard knocks, as well as career, as well as personal development, as well as personality. I had to learn some things the hard way. And while I may not share all of those things because this is a public forum, and I will share more of those things in my private Wifey for Lifey group, which there's a link in the description box if you want to join that membership. It's very inexpensive. I have to charge for it because we want to keep undesirable women who are negative, who are bitter, who are broken. We want to keep them out the group until they get therapy and are able to reclaim their lives and reclaim their self-esteem and reclaim who they are, and then they could come join us and invest in something. So we have to charge because we have to keep certain people out. We don't want just anybody to come into the group and spew their negativity and their hate about marriage, because marriage is really beautiful. It's beneficial. It makes your life easier if you choose right, if you navigate it right, if you develop some strategy. I just can't imagine not being married. Now, if my husband, dies at an early age, that's one of my biggest fears, because he's so good to me. I don't know if I would ever get married again. I don't know if I would ever invest myself in the way that I've invested in this relationship. because I had the love of my life. But marriage is more than about love. You can't maintain a marriage just on love. I know people tell y'all that. I know that's the belief. And you guys know that I come from a religious perspective. And even though I don't even want to say I'm a religious person, I am a Christian. I have my own thoughts and ideologies about how I interpret scripture. And also I have my own thoughts about the progression of marriage and how it changed. You know, marriage in the biblical sense is not marriage in today's society. And so we have progressed. We are more modern. And so it's complex. But that's a whole nother video. We can talk about submission and the respect that women need to have for their man that they choose. And we can talk about all of that in another video. Today is a video about how to vet men, and why women find themselves in situations where they are neglected, left, abused, left with children and no father. So I'm going to talk about those things, and this is part one, and I'm going to hit on three items in particular three points in particular that I think are the catalyst of why women choose bad men. So one thing is, I'm coming from a perspective of a Christian. So if you're not a Christian, just learn how to take what you can take from someone and leave the rest. One thing that I don't like about YouTube, that I don't like about social media, is people's lack of intelligence. People cannot take information from a person that they don't like, or people can't take the good information and leave the rest. So if you are, someone that's not religious, or you don't believe in God, or you don't live by godly principles, well, there are still things that you can learn from people who are Christians and who do live from a godly perspective, because some of this is common sense. You can look at statistics, you can look at your community around you, you can look at the percentile of divorce, you can look at the number of single mothers, you can look at everything and say to yourself, okay, well, I don't agree with her on this, or I don't agree with her on that, but this is what I agree with her on. I agree, so if the religious part of it doesn't apply to you, just set it where you set it and go about your life. So the first thing that you need to do to vet men, and let me say this. You guys know I got married young, which is harder. A lot of people think it's easier when you get married young. It's not, because me and my husband are not even the same person anymore. Morals, values, the same. I'll get to that. But personalities, the things we're interested in, how our careers have evolved, the things we like to do, like none of that is the same. I'm a completely different person from when I met my husband. Completely different in some ways. Okay. So I'm speaking of the perspective of a grown woman. Now, if you're in your 20s, I don't think that the mind is developed to your late 20s. A lot of people don't know that. Your mind is not even mature till you get into your late 20s as a woman. And so a lot of people just, you're not going to get this sometimes in your 20s. Sometimes you have to go through some things, get yourself acclimated with the world of love and dating, because I was definitely naive in my 20s. But my concern is for the young women who are watching me, who are in their 20s. I want them to make better decisions than some of the people who raised them. Everybody wasn't raised by a mother who taught them the right things in the right way. Sometimes we look around and women are not doing the right thing and we want to mimic them. But, you should mimic people who are doing better than you. Like, you should mimic people who are actually successful in relationships, who are successful in life. That's what I do. Not mimic them, but listen to them. Take what I can take and leave the rest. And so what bothers me the most is that it seems like older women, 30 and up, are the most foolish of the group. It's not even the 20-something year old women anymore. It's these women that's 40, that's on their way to 40, 30 and up that I find to be very despicable. And the reason I say I find a lot of women to be despicable is because they are leading our younger generation down a path of hoedom and being single and not getting all the benefits that they can get from being a feminine woman with a man who loves them, and not being able to reap the benefit of raising a child with a man who loves them. And I think it's disgusting. And so somebody has to speak out. Like, somebody has to come out and say, this is unacceptable. So this is why I do what I do. And I will do a whole nother separate video about why I do what I do, why I talk about marriage, and why I'm so passionate about marriage, because we deserve it as women. We deserve to be treated as if we are royalty. We deserve it. But you can't get that if you don't meet the standard. See, a lot of women think that, I'm this, I'm that. But like I said, there are very few queens in today's society. Very few queens. And I'm sorry to say it, but it's the truth. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that you need to do when you're vetting men is stop looking at appearances. Okay? Appearances are deceiving. Listen to what I'm saying to you. Appearances are deceiving. Matthew, and I was listening to a lady who was talking about like how to choose a spouse, and I really love her channel. I don't remember what it was, but I'll post it because I've been watching her videos and I like her perspective as well. And she was talking about this verse, and I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to share that. So in the Bible, Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 through 20, it talks about how appearances are deceiving, and about how we will know people by their fruit. Okay. So you might meet a man. He might be fine. He might be good looking. He might seem like he has all his stuff together. He says all the right things. He does all the right things. He's romantic, and you're like excited, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a great guy. He might have a great job. He might, drive a nice car. He might, seem like he comes from a good family. And y'all know I'm an advocate of all those things. Those are things that I preach and tell on this channel. You need to look at all those things. But that's not the number one thing you should be looking at when you're deciding, is this a prospect for a husband? What you should be thinking about is, let me get to know him by his fruit. And that's what that scripture talks about in Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 through 20, is getting to know someone by their fruit, by their behavior, by how they treat you, by how they treat other people. How do they treat the waiter that takes their order? How do they treat the woman that they don't agree with? How do they call women names? Are they verbally abusive towards people that they don't get along with? What is their relationship with their father? Do they have a father? Because a man that don't have a father, there are going to be some issues there. There are going to be some issues with a man who didn't grow up with a father. Some serious issues. What's the relationship with the mother? How do they talk to you? Do they keep their word? Do they pick you up on time? Are they patient? Are they forgiving? That's a huge one. Are they forgiving? A man that's unforgiving, you are never going to have a happy marriage. You're never going to have a happy marriage. A man that's very feminine, who holds grudges, who almost acts very female-like, you're going to have a hard time maintaining a marriage with someone like that, because they're emotional like a woman. And so you have to understand the difference between personality, someone's personality, how they act, and their character. And that's a point that really stuck out with me, is understanding someone's personality versus their character. Because you can start, did I miss the definition of vetting? Oh, yeah, you probably did. Vetting is basically going through a process where you're being selective. How do you select? So when we are vetting a man, we are basically going through a process where we are deciding how to choose a spouse. And we know ultimately the man chooses you. A lot of women like to think they choose men, it's kind of a 50-50 thing. And what I mean by it's a 50-50 thing is you could totally be into a man and you could love him to death. You could bear his children. You could have sex with him whenever he wants to get, romantic with you. Well, sex is not romance, but whenever he wants to basically release that energy from his body, the way men have to release that energy from their body. And he could be with you for years, but he still won't marry you. Still won't marry you. You could have built a whole home for him. You could cook dinner every night and lay on your back 3 to 4 times a week, but he still won't marry you if he don't want to. So at the end of the day, the man has to do the asking. He's in control of that. Now you can decide if you're going to accept it or not, but the man kind of controls who he gonna marry. You ain't got no control over that. You got control over the part of whether you gonna say yes or no. That's the only part a woman has control of in the process of getting married. Unless you have a beta male and you asked him to marry you, and those relationships work. There are a lot of alpha women and beta males. Lots of relationships like that. So I'm not saying that those relationships don't work, but my perspective is more from a masculine man. A man who's only going to let you go so far with him before he's like, nah, this don't work for me. Masculine men, you're not going to be able to ask them to marry them. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. Like, I remember I was having this conversation with my husband and he was like, if you would have asked me to marry you, that's so pathetic. Like, I would have been like, let me ask. Like, so a alpha male is never going to want you to ask him to marry him. That's very weird to them. They're not going to accept that. So what I mean by vetting is making a careful, critical examination of who you decide to date and who you decide to have sex with. Now, you guys know I am a Christian, but I don't get involved in telling women to save sex for marriage because I know society has moved away from that. And I know most women who are older don't understand the value of holding your most precious jewel. I know the average woman doesn't understand the importance of that. Now, that does not mean I'm not going to talk about it. I am going to do a video called Hold Out as Long as Possible, because once you bring sex into an equation, you've lost your power in a lot of ways. But that's a different topic. So that's what vetting means. When you vet, you make a critical examination of, is this a man I should date or is this a man I should not date? So I hope that makes sense. Okay, back to the point. All right, so I was saying there's a difference between personality and character. You might fall in love with a personality and not even know it. You think you in love with the man, but you in love with his personality. You in love that he treats you good, seemingly he treats you good. You're in love with that he looks good. Maybe if you're somebody that's kind of loose with sex, maybe y'all have had sex. You in love with his, bedroom language. You in love with the fact that maybe he takes you to Applebee's and buys you a 2 for $20. Maybe you in love with that. You're in love. Maybe he does little things for you, but you don't know this man. See, because it takes time. Not a lot of time, but it takes some time to get to know a man. And believe me, his character will come out. When women tell me things like, and I've heard women tell me this, I just listen to them and laugh. Women tell me things like, well, sometimes they do everything right and then all of a sudden they change. That's a lie. That's a lie from the pit of hell. That's a lie. Because at some point or another, a person is going to show you their true colors. They're going to, and it may not even be towards you. It may not even be towards you. It might be towards someone else. They're violent. They have violent outbursts against people they're mad at. They talk filthy out of their mouth about people. They're negative. There are always signs that someone's character is questionable. Now, no one's perfect. Don't get me wrong. We all got quirks and we all do things wrong. But you have to look specifically, very closely when you're older women in particular, because some of y'all is older. I'm not talking about the 21, 22, 23. I hope y'all are listening to me, young girls, but y'all got a little time to be flexible with that kind of stuff. But don't ruin your life. Don't ruin your life. I always tell you, young girls, don't ruin your life by being attached to a man that you're gonna have to be attached to for your whole life. But personality and character are different things. You need to take some time to get to know the character of a man, okay? They don't even know that they are so emotional and passionate, and the attraction is so strong, and they think it's love, and it's not love. It's just infatuation. And believe me, it will pass. It will pass. I don't care how much you're attracted to somebody, how infatuated you are. That's not the relationship me and my husband have anymore. I'm not infatuated by him. Those days are over. That lasts for about 3 years tops. Infatuation, extreme passion, that's something that really only happens when you're first starting to connect with a man. Those are emotions that you will never really feel again. What happens is your relationship will start to evolve, and it will become like an agape love, like a deep love. Like the way I love my husband now as a grown woman is way different from when I was 22 years old, 21 years old. Like what I thought was love was not love. Some of it was infatuation, some of it was passion, some of it was just, oh my gosh, this feels so good as a woman. This feels so good. But it wasn't love, okay? Love takes time to grow and progress. And so I was blessed to make pretty good decisions when I was dating him for the most part. But when I look back, I definitely could have gotten caught up in a bad situation if he didn't have good character. Because think about this. If my husband did not have good character and I got all wrapped up in the emotion of it and the fun we were having and how we were hanging out and we were together all the time and all that sexual tension, and if I got caught up in all that sexual tension and, just flew my legs wide open without going through a thought process or understanding that there's a time and a place for everything, what if he would have betrayed me? How would my life be different if he would have betrayed me? If I would have gave him everything and he betrayed me? What will my life be? So that's why you have to vet these men. We live in a day and age where people are so corrupt. They're so evil. They're so wild. Not everyone, but a lot of people lack morals. They lack good judgment. They're biased. They don't think things through. They don't have critical thinking skills. And so you really have to be somebody that can see past all the flashiness, okay? And so you can't just think with your emotion. Because when you first fall in love with a man, I promise you, young girls, listen to me. When you first fall in love with a man, I promise you it's not love. I promise you. This is what I know. I'm telling you what I know, not what I heard. This is what I know. It's not love. It's infatuation. It's being in the moment. It's just feeling this in it. Let me tell y'all. If I think back, I can still feel what it felt like to fall in love with my husband. It was the most beautiful experience, one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. We spent so much time together. We took our time. We bonded. We became friends. We took it very slow. It was really one of the most beautiful times in my life. And a lot of it was emotion and infatuation. But we kept going. And we built that trust in our relationship. And I learned what his character was. And I met his parents. And I met his father. And I met his brother. And I met his grandmother. And I saw what kind of student he was. And I saw what he was interested in. And I listened to him. I listened to how he talked. I listened to the things he thought about. I listened to the way his mind operated. And when you're in love, sometimes you can't be objective. Or when you think you're in love, you can't be objective, because a lot of women invest a lot of time in relationships and then they're too scared to leave. It's like, I can't leave because I didn't slept with him. Some of y'all didn't had his child. You know, he ain't gave you no ring. He ain't put no ring on your finger. He ain't made no commitments to you, no promises, no nothing. But you didn't gave him so much. You cooked for him, you cleaned for him. And then he might have this little light bulb go off in his head and he's like, you're not really who I want. No, thank you. I think I'm going to just, you're not who I want. And now you've invested all this time and all this emotion into a man who decides he's not going to marry you. So this is why we have to be careful. Women have to be careful. You can't be so attracted that when you see red flags, you ignore the red flags because you're so in love. Okay. So you really need to take your time and say, okay, I think I'm in love, but let me pump my brakes a little bit. Okay. I think I'm in love, but I need to wait and see how this thing plays out, and I need to take my time. Okay. The last point that I'm going to make in this video is you need to make sure you understand someone's morals and values. Okay. I never hear women talk about this a lot. I hear them talk about how much a man makes, what his job level is, does he have kids, does he not have kids, you know, how do I get him to be interested in me? How do I get him to ask me to marry? I hear women talk about a lot of things, but I never hear a lot of women talk about, outside of like Christian spaces, very churchy spaces, I never hear a woman talk about morals and values. You know, this is what I'm going to tell you, and this is what I know. If you hook up with a man who does not have your same morals and values, you are going down a road of pain and devastation and probably divorce. And if you don't divorce, you will just be staying in the marriage pretending like y'all are happy to save face. But you won't be happy. You won't be happy. You will be unhappy because you're with someone that you're not equally yoked with. You will be with a man who you are not equally yoked with. And so some of us, we know we weren't really thinking about these things when we were young and we were dating. But you older women are old enough to understand a man who does not share your values and your beliefs. It's like a Muslim trying to marry a Christian. There might be an issue there. It's like an atheist trying to marry a Christian. There might be an issue there. It's like a person who believes in open relationships trying to be involved with a woman who believes in monogamy. That might not work. It's like a guy who thinks it's okay to go to the strip club every weekend is trying to hook up with a woman who would be disgusted by that. It's not going to work. It's like a liar who lies all the time trying to be with somebody who believes honesty is important. It ain't going to work. It's like someone who is willing to communicate, forgive, and be open, trying to be with a man who's very closed off, shut off, mean. It ain't gonna work. Okay? So when you hook up with a man who does not share your values, your morals, most likely it's not gonna work. And so you see all these divorces, it's very clear that it's not gonna work. That's why we got all these divorces. And in some communities, women aren't even getting married. They're not even getting to the ring to get a divorce. But divorce is high among all races. It's not just one community, but we know that there is one community who's definitely all the way at the bottom. And we have to change this because it's not fair to women out here to not get the benefits of being with someone who's going to dedicate their life to you and go out here and work for you and you know, build a family unit and build a life with you. It's just not fair for some women not to be able to have that. It's just not right. And it hurts my heart, which is why we have Wifey for Lifey. All right, so avoid the pain and avoid the heartache and stay away from men. When you see that red flag that y'all do not have the same values and y'all do not have the same morals, why are you continuing to date someone that does not share your values and your morals? Yes. Is it lonely to be single? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can have friends, you could have family, you could have all that. I was single, I was not someone that was super popular. I was not someone that the men were chasing. Not because I was unattractive, but I thought I was unattractive. Like, I thought that I wasn't, desirable in some ways. And so that hindered me for a large part of my life up until I met my husband with dating, So I came in very closed off, like very unsure of dating him. Even though I was raised in a home where I saw a masculine feminine dynamic, sometimes the dynamic was, more masculine than others. But I feel like you have to know that you're worthy, and being single is not like the worst thing in the world. I would rather be single than be with a man who does not treat me right. Okay. I would rather be single any day over being with a man who I got to worry about, is he going to ask to marry me or not? Does he have my morals? Does he share my beliefs? Like, ain't nobody got time for that. So being single is not a prison sentence. It's a time for you to think about yourself. And you don't have to think about anyone else, because when you become a wife, you have to think about other people besides yourself. You have to think about your husband and his needs, and y'all have to work together. When you are single, you are free, girl. You free. You could do whatever you want. You could eat whatever you want. You ain't got to go to somebody, oh, what we gonna eat tonight? You ain't got to worry about somebody trying to be up all on you every night. You ain't got to worry about that. You free. You single. And there are perks of being single. There's a time in every woman's life where it's okay to be single, but there's also a time in your life where you realize, oh, I want that masculine energy in my life. I need that. I want a life partner. I want a life partner. I don't want to do this all by myself. Then you will come to that point probably in your life at some point. Hopefully it won't be too late. I hope it's not when you're 40 years old. I would hope it's in your late 20s. Or even in your early 20s. When you meet a man that's good, you meet a man that's good. I don't care if you're 23 or if you're 44. Age really shouldn't matter. If you meet a good guy at 23, y'all have a good relationship, y'all have the same morals, same values, why would you wait to get married? You may never get that chance again. People won't say this, but that's the truth. What did you say? Is it possible for some of these things to be worked on or learned with the men? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Is it possible for some of these things to be worked on or learned? Oh, with men, like you mean while you're in the relationship? Is that what you mean? I think to a certain extent, yes. But I feel like this is where you have to set your standard. Okay, and then I'm going to get out of here, you guys. Those were my 3 points. I'm going to come back with part 2 on how to vet men, but this is part 1. I'm going to answer this question and I'm going to get out of here. I think how you teach men your standard is by walking in your standard. Okay. So I feel like you can learn this with a man, meaning like, let's say you're in a relationship, you be in a relationship with a guy 2 months, 1 month, I don't care. Long enough for y'all to start feeling each other and talking to each other. And let's say this man wants to have sex with you. And let's say you either could be the girl that is a Christian and you want to have sex, because just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you don't want to have sex. That's not factual. But let's just say you don't want to do this. Like, you don't want to go there because once you start having sex with someone, the relationship is changed and you can never go back. Once you start having sex, you can't ever go back. My young girls who are listening to me, who watch this replay, once you have sex, you can't go back. You can't go back in your relationship. So as a woman, you have to set that standard to let this man know, well, you're not my husband. So sex is like, that's not something you can really demand from me in this relationship, So that's the time where you have to set the standard and let the man know, no, I'm not really ready to go there with you. I want to. You got to stay feminine now. And you can't make him feel like he's being rejected, but you have to let him know, like, I really would love to have intercourse with you. I would love to do that. I am attracted to you. I can't wait for the day that we do that, but I don't feel we're there yet. We're not there yet. And so this is how you vet a man. So, and this is the same conversation that, I had with my husband prior to marriage. And it was not a lot of conversations because he never tried to pressure me. A man that's really digging you, he knows it's going to eventually happen. He doesn't even need to really be trying to pressure you like that. He can go get it from whoever he want to get it from, or if he's a man of good, high character, he might not be driven by that. So it just depends on who you're dating. But, that was never an issue in my relationship, being forced to try to have sex. That was never an issue because I set the standard. It's when I'm ready, I'll let you know. It's like that kind of thing. So if you're talking about how a man talks to you, you have to set the standard. If a man is talking to you all crazy, if his tone is out of line, you kind of have to let a man know, well, I out and aggressive and try to tell him what to do. Who can't have this kind of conversation with him because you do the same thing. But if you're a woman who, and I'm talking about older women now, you got to learn. You got to go through your 20s and learn these things. But once you start getting into your 30s and 40s, you should understand how to carry yourself as a woman. And if you don't, you should be working on it. And so when a man is talking to you kind of crazy, you have to look at him and be like, I don't talk to you like that, and I don't really accept people yelling at me. I don't really accept people calling me names. I don't really want people to curse at me. That's not really, how I operate. So, please don't do that. Now, a man that respects you will stop doing that. And he might slip up and, get reckless with his tone again, but then he'll catch himself and he'll be like, okay, he'll come back and be like, okay, I was upset, or, I wasn't thinking of how I was saying that to you. So I apologize. He will catch himself. Because as a woman, the man has to raise to your standard. He has to get to your standard as a feminine, enticing, attractive, desirable woman. He's going to have to meet your standard. Same for a man. There are some requirements that men are going to have of women, and he's going to, go through that process with you when he's dating you and say, lead more towards physical attraction before they get into the emotional part. Some men lead more by how feminine a woman is, how soft she is, how easy she is to get along with. Some men lead by more, they like that girl that has a little wild streak in her. I'm not talking about like being loose. I'm talking about just somebody that's a free spirit, because it's different from his personality. So men will lead with different things, but you set the standard. I always tell women that you set the standard. You set the tone for how a man treats you. If a man is talking to you crazy, if a man is cheating on you, you are setting the tone for that, okay? Because the first time a man cheats on you, it should be a non-negotiable. It should be okay, well, we're going to have to end this because I don't accept you putting my life in danger by laying down with other women. That's a non-negotiable for me. Now, if you are married, it can get a little complex. You might have children. You might have all your finances tied together. This is why women stay with men who cheat. Some women see the benefit of that. Now, I'm talking about women who are with wealthy men. I don't see the benefit of a woman being with a man. And even then, if a man is really wealthy, AIDS is still real. Sexually transmitted diseases is still very real. I don't know anyone who would want to put themselves in the even with the chance of knowing someone who is being unfaithful to you, they can pass on some disease to you. It's weird to me, but there are women like that. There are women who are willing to take a man cheating on them because they want the lifestyle. And it doesn't have to be a super rich man. It could be a man that makes six figures and up. They're getting a lifestyle. Maybe they don't have to work. Maybe they get to stay at home. There are many reasons why women do what they do. It could be low self-esteem. I don't know. I don't know every woman in the world and why she does what she does. But what I will say is, you're putting your life at risk when you stay with someone who cheats on you. And then they're going to come back and try to have sex with you. That's disgusting. So I think that when you're dating, you need to make sure that this is not a man who exhibits traits of cheating. Looking at other women all the time. He has a bad reputation, but you still date him. You caught him cheating when you were dating and you still married him. I don't know. I feel like some women bring certain things on themselves. Some women, and not in every case. I think there are some rare cases where things happen in a marriage and people cheat. But I think people ignore flags. They ignore red flags, and they just let it go. I'm just gonna let it go. It was just one time. He just cheated one time. I'm just gonna let it go. No, because now you're a doormat. That's what you are. You forgave him, so he's like, oh, I could cheat on her. She forgave me. I could cheat on her now. and you're good as got after that. So if a couple were to recover from infidelity, my advice for infidelity, if you're married, you got kids, so you're putting your kids as the priority, as you should. That's the only scenario where I could see a woman saying, okay, maybe we were not getting along. Maybe I was doing something. He was doing something. We're going to come back together because we have children and we're going to try to work this out. But you better make sure that you get therapy, couples therapy, and that you set boundaries in that relationship. Once a man violates you and your body like that, you better make sure that you set some perimeters up so that the behavior is actually changed. And he's not just saying, I'm going to change and still be doing whatever it is he's doing behind your back. And then you go to the doctor and the doctor tell you, you got a disease. So you got to be careful about that. And there's no guarantees. It could happen to anyone. It could happen to any one of us. But that's why you got to always keep your ears and eyes open and live by standards. That's what standards do. Standards are there to set boundaries for yourself. That's what standards are for. They are essentially boundaries. All right, so this video has gone way too long. I'll be back for part 2 on how to vet men. There are a couple more points that I want to make about how to notice certain things in men, and also how men don't reveal certain things about themselves until you get married sometimes. Like, there were things that I did not learn about my husband until after I married him. And now when I look back, just to think about those things, I want to share some of those things that, maybe you don't know about the person you're dating, because they have their best. I don't want to say that it's fake, but like, everybody puts their best foot forward when they're dating. Everybody, men, women, it doesn't matter. Everybody puts their best foot forward. So I do want to come back and talk about those things. And if you are looking for a safe place to talk about marriage, dating, if you want to be married, if you are married, Wifey for Lifey group is a great space. Join the group. People ask questions in there. We give advice. We give tips. It's not therapy, but we're just women in there kind of supporting women and giving our thought processes and ideologies about marriage and what we're doing in our marriages to make them benefit us as women and all of that. So I will see you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye. I thought the representative falls off after months. Yeah, it does. It does. I think that that's why you have to get to know someone. After a few months, they might not even still show their whole personality. They might just start letting you see where the holes are at, because it takes a while for people to really get comfortable enough with you for them to show who they really, really are, like on the inside. And so that's why you just have to be careful. So after a few months, you know, sometimes women are so in love, and you have some men that are kind of emotional like women as well. Sometimes a man or a woman is so in love that you don't see the red flags because you're too infatuated. You're too deep into it. You're looking for the love story. And the truth of the matter is there's no love story. It's picking the right person for you to be a life partner with, and then you create that love story with that person. So yeah, that's what I mean by that. All right, guys, bye.